good morning, good morning. We might as well play taps this morning because it is over. So it's
that lady has sung.
It is. It's over. Good for them.
It was,
you know what? On one hand, I'm kind of glad because I am freaking exhausted.
I can go back to going to bed at 9 o'clock.
It's almost like a workout because I stayed up to watch it. And at the end of the game, my heart was just like jamming away, like, oh my God, the tension was amazing. Hey, listen, they gave us an amazing, amazing show. Certainly a phenomenal run, one for the ages. But, in the end, you got beat by a better team.
Yeah.
Listen, they're a great team. Listen, Nudelberg is a freaking giant. He's the great giant.
Hard work beats talent until talent works hard. That's reality.
They were well coached. They were well coached. They really. Last night was like a scrappy game.
Yeah.
Very different. And Spo even said it, man. They let him play last night. It was a rough game. As a matter of fact, why don't we just look at Eric Spoelstra? Why don't you bring him on?
Could you just speak about the entire journey of this playoffs from, almost not making it in through the play-in game, being an 8th seed, going all the way through the finals? What does that say about your team, you as a coach, and what lessons do you think just regular people can take from you guys' journey from where you started to where you're at right now?
Yeah, we would have liked to have been able to climb the mountaintop to be able to get that final win. But I think this is a team that a lot of people can relate to. If you've ever felt that you were dismissed or felt that you were made to feel less than, we had a lot of people in our locker room that probably had that, and there's probably a lot of people out there, that have felt that at some time or another. But also the way this team handled setbacks and adversity, to develop a collective grit and perseverance. I mentioned this before, that hopefully these are lessons that'll transcend this beautiful game, that hopefully these are lessons that we can pass along to our children, that even though it is sport, that you can learn, lessons of life from this game, and that you can persevere, you can handle what people may view as many failures along the way, and become stronger from it, and to be able to overcome things and find beautiful.
Okay, so for the sake of starting a debate, I have to say, everything I'm going to say it anyway. What he said talked about learning the lessons, right? Overcoming obstacles. All of those things to me are success. I know Mark may differ with me, but I'm just going to say that it isn't. I know Mark feels differently. Well, it isn't always about winning that game. That isn't all that success is about. And so I thought he was a good
for everybody who poo-poos sport and goes, "Oh, it's just a game," right? It's not just a game. Not for these people, because these people devote their life. They devote 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to it being everything. So it's not just a game, right? And this is why sport transcends to life. It's why you can teach life through sport, is because this is what it's really about. They devoted everything they had to accomplishing something. Now, if you were to ask Eric Spoelstra whether or not it was a success or a failure, he would say it was a failure. We came here to win it. We came here to win the championship. That doesn't mean that we didn't learn a ton, that we didn't overcome a lot of adversity, and that we can use this to be better. But ultimately, you didn't accomplish the thing you came there to do. Whether there was expectation or not to do it, either way, when you try to do something and you don't do it, he said, he started it. We would have liked to have gotten to the top.
Of course.
We would have liked to have gotten to the mountaintop. So they didn't accomplish what they wanted to accomplish, but look at all the things that did come from it, right? Look at all the things we were able to do. We were able to build grit. We were able to build resiliency. And Lori, had you been at my TED Talk about failure,
I couldn't
that's
be
my
there.
entire point. And there's a piece at the end of that got clipped off where he goes, there's no regret here, right? He goes, we didn't do what we wanted to do, but there's no regret here. That's what it's about, is that they did not get what they wanted, and they don't regret it for a second because they did everything they could.
But we live in a world where people keep score. And if you do not achieve what you set out to do, they make changes.
Yeah.
And for all of us, if you work for somebody and you don't achieve, all of a sudden someone's going to go, we got to make a change. Head coaches get fired all the time. They had a great job, did great. We didn't get there. Monty Williams gets fired in Phoenix as a bum, and now he's the highest paid coach in Detroit. It's all.
Listen, I like
Please,
listen.
Lord, let the Heat make changes, because if you look at this team and you go, we're good enough, we're absolutely good enough, let's go back and do it again, then somebody should be fired for malpractice.
Yep.
Because everybody in the NBA should be put on notice that nobody's good enough to beat this team the way they are right now, right? Everybody got manhandled by that team. So that should be the bar for what it takes to get there. And I hope that we make changes in order to be able to get that much better to be able to beat them next year.
So a couple of shout outs, because we got to get to wake up. A couple of shout outs. Mackie Firestein enjoyed our conversation yesterday, and
Happy
I know
birthday,
Mark is
Mackie.
teed up for that. Casey, I agree with you. If you listen to all the pundits, they say whatever you have to do, you got to go get Dame. So, but Jake posed a great question. Are you willing to lose in the finals to get 4 years of Dame? And I would say there's always a sacrifice, always a sacrifice. So kudos, congratulations. You know, the takeaways that Spo talked about, regular people can take this stuff away. You may not be in sports, but you can take this to your kids. You can take this to your family. Learning how to deal with adversity is what the key is to all of this. So pretty incredible. Shay, wake this shit up because we got a big show. Lori wants to talk about the top 10 skills that you need to do to get better to be a champion in life.
Wake up, everybody. Get up, get up, get up, get up. Wake up. Come on, come on. Wake up, everybody. Teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen what you have to say. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. No more about to thinking, time to thinking ahead. Come on.
So I love what I'm going to say here. Success is a journey. You measure it by climbing the mountain. I'm going to talk specifically about Mark and how proud I am. You know, 3 years ago, he decides to leave college football. I'd never really done anything in the business world. Now he's written a book. He's done a TED Talk, and you ain't shit until you're dropping bombs on Bradley's podcast. Shay, show me Bradley.
My opinion is that the most important thing a coach does is keep you accountable.
That is why I don't have one. Honest to God.
Because you don't want to be held
I
accountable
don't
by
like
somebody
being
else.
told what to do. When buddies of mine, they're all ripped and
Dude, I'll train you for free. Won't even charge you.
I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Hey, come on, dude. Let me train you. I'll get you shredded.
I'm like, nah, I'm good. Because I already know when they're like,
I'll meet you at the gym at 5.
dude, I got shit to do. I'll be there when I can decide to go there. Like maybe even after work, maybe at 9:30 tonight after Call of Duty. I don't f***ing know, but I do know I'll go. But when I want to go,
Sure.
not when you want me to go. Do I work for you
Sound
now?
like an entrepreneur.
I hired you
Sound like an
to train
entrepreneur.
me, but now I work for you.
Right.
Oh, I gotta hold you accountable. I'll fire you as a customer too.
You, I won't even hire you. Why? Because you're going to tell me what to do. I already know that. I hate that. shit. Like, I'll hire you to tell me how to do some,
Yeah.
but don't tell me what to do.
So if you don't know Bradley, you should. Brad is a crazy serial entrepreneur like the rest of us. I was fortunate to meet him many, many, many years ago. The time was right about a year ago for me to introduce him to Mark and Jake. That is the backbone of our get on the ball training stuff. So Mark, just give us some insight, because that day was a blast.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just to have that experience and to be in the room with him was awesome. Because when you're with a guy who's an expert that wants to take the air out of the room, it's a battle to, like, you know, stand there and go toe to toe and have it's not a normal podcast where most podcasts are asking you questions and they just want to get all of the information out of you. He wants to continuously assert himself as the expert in the room during the conversation. So it was really fun. He was fantastic. Having the opportunity to sit down with him in his offices, having the opportunity to go into his studio and the production studio that he's built was great. And I really enjoyed the conversation. And there was a couple things that happened during that talk. Number one, there was a technical difficulty 10 minutes in that he talked about and was like, well, we're not going to cut it. We're going to keep it and it's going to go because we don't do any edits on this show. And then we got into a conversation about transgender that I was like, please don't let this conversation get into the podcast. But sure enough, he released the whole thing 50 minutes long. And kudos to him, man. He doesn't change for anybody. He continuously puts out the content. And I've never seen my notifications on Instagram light up like that. I mean, when there's thousands and thousands of likes and comments on something, it's mind-blowing.
It was, so, you know, as I said, I met him 8 years ago. He and his brother Jeff approached me to get involved in this training platform thing that they were building. And I was like, I don't have it in me. I'm not going to really build something else. I'm just going to kind of do what I'm doing. And he was hardcore, like, what do you mean? What are you afraid of? He was like, you know, really drilling me to do it back then. But you know what? If it's not now, maybe it's later. And the thought dawned on me. I reached out to Jeff. I said, could you get us some time with Brad? And Brad since then has blown up. And he took the time, and to his credit, he spends a lot of time with Mark and with Jake, consulting us and building it. And so watch it, because I watched it last night. It's so entertaining. Jake and I were in the room. You can kind of hear us cackling in the background. But it was a very, very good podcast. So
yeah, it was awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. It was great. Hopefully everybody gets a listen. We're going to chop it up and be able to share some of the nuggets from it. It was great. Yeah, super cool.
Can't wait to see it.
So let's get to motivational music, which is really cool. If you don't upskill, you're going to lose out, and Hart brings it home for us.
Well, I am the one who can please you. Ain't that what you said? You seem so alone. I guess I was easily led. So took my love. Well, I guess it went to your head. And when you were hungry, I brought you your breakfast. Yeah. Even it up, even it up, even it up. Even it up, even it up, even it up. A good man pays his debt. Well, you ain't paid yours yet. Come on, even it, oh, even it.
All right. Even it up. The only way to get ahead in this world is to pay attention to what you need to know. Lori, kudos to you for finding this, sent it to me in a screenshot. I found the article, went deep. We'll never have time to fully get into it, but I do want to talk about the top 10 skills that you will need for getting into 2025, which is right around the corner. That is berserk. But leave this up for a second. Mark, give me the highlights or actually, Lori, you start. Give me your highlights of the top 10. What's the one that jumps at you?
I think there's a couple that kind of come together for me: analytical thinking and innovation, and complex problem solving and critical thinking. If you remember, we didn't end up doing it on the show, but there was that article on strategic leadership. And those were the same skills that they talked about in that article.
Yep.
Right. I see it with my own team. Yesterday, we did a brainstorming and a debrief and then a brainstorming on a program. They don't want to do data entry. They don't want to do that stuff. They want to automate. All we talked about in the brainstorming was automating the processes so that they did not need to be sitting there doing that kind of work, so that they could focus on solving the big problems, right? And doing the big innovative things. And I was so proud to watch the team, right, thinking that way, because I don't think it's something we see as much as I think we're going to need to see.
So I agree with you 1,000%, Lori. I would say that is the number one, because number one, the opportunity right now with what we have with AI and how accessible it is and how you can really be as creative as you could possibly want. And how do we really incorporate this into as many aspects of our business as possible? And it forces you to do something that goes against our human nature, which is doing things the way it's always been done. And so, I love Gabby does this inside of her company. They have to think strategically about how to implement new processes that get them out of doing it the way that it's been done, or getting them out of the manual process, which for me points back to when I was starting my coaching career, and I wrote about this. It was a very interesting time to be involved with football, because you had a process that was very laborious and 100% manual. Everything. I'm talking about splitting film and taping it together and spooling the reels to then watch, which went from that to being completely digitized. All of the video being inside of the digital world, all of the data being input digitally and not into a manual, piece of paper that you were marking tallies on. So all of a sudden, this place went from being manual to being digital. And so I was a part of this changing of the guard. And I was constantly looking at everything we did, being like, how can we use PowerPoint for this? How can we use Excel for this? How can we use the tools at our hands to implement new things? We're still going to do the same things. We're still going to break down the film. We're still going to study the stats. We're still going to keep the core principles there. But we got to find a new way to do it. And that's very hard for human beings.
Well, so for me, I look at the list, and there were really no surprises there for me.
Right.
When I dug into it, when it said active learning and learning strategies, I was like, all right, what do they mean by that? And this is incredible. It may seem surprising that learning how to learn makes the list.
Mm-hmm.
Any HR professional knows that simply delivering a learning program is not enough to ensure that people learn. So fundamentally, the way we learn is changing at the same time that the information is changing at light speed. Excuse the pun. Thank you, Brad. But, the reality is there's so much change, and change freaks people out.
Constantly be learning.
Constant. You can't even say, I've had people say to me, like, you guys are so LinkedIn centric. Like, what happens if LinkedIn goes away? I go, whatever the next thing is, we'll do that too. I don't know.
I want to touch on what Joni said, because I think, Joni said trying to find employees that want to think beyond this task, right, is a difficult skill to find. That may be true. However, as leaders, we have a responsibility to teach them to think that way, to coach them, to create an environment. The people that I was referring to before that were sitting around this table a year ago didn't even know what a debrief and a brainstorming was, right? Wow. So, to the point, so we have put in things that we do to ignite that innovation and that creativity, right? What are the obstacles? How are we going to get over? And it's really fun to watch that progression and that growth in the team. So I agree, because a lot of times they've not been put in situations where they get to learn those skills. And then the last thing I just want to touch on, that was one of the skills, was the social influence and leadership.
Yeah.
We think social influence is being on LinkedIn, right? And TikTok and wherever, Instagram. No, social influence is about having a presence. It's about relationships. It's about being seen as a leader, right? You've people skills, all of those things, having influence in the world that you're in, don't come overnight. And I think that's the part for our young people. They go, well, I'm a leader. Well, yeah, you just got here, right? It takes time to build that social influence. So I think those are two.
So it's interesting. One of the things I started out when I was coaching was I would say to anybody at any level, you need to be the CEO of your own life first. Like, the choices you make will dictate how people view you. So if you're late, if you're messy, I talked about dress code yesterday, that whole sneaker thing really got a lot of traction. If you can't manage and make the right decisions about yourself, why would I get in the boat with you? It seems logical, but people don't get that. You can't just tell people I want to lead you. They have to come to it. And so it's great, like, you as a leader are so entrenched in learning this. Like, this is the World Economic Forum comes out with this shit. This is not like, Play-Doh. This is real stuff.
Well, and by the way, I mean, this is what we do. This is what Junior Achievement does. I need to understand this, because guess what? Our young generation are in our hands. We need to make sure that our programs are teaching them and giving them the opportunities to learn these skills and to practice these skills, or they're going to show up in our workforce and they're not going to have them.
So I would challenge you that not every CEO thinks like that. That's where the status quo. Yeah, those are our programs. That's who they are. That's what we've done. And that, and they're totally, unaware that the shit doesn't work, man. It's like,
even though leadership has evolved over time, there's still two different kinds of leadership. There's the ivory tower leadership, and there is the in the trenches leadership. There is the I'm leading from above, or I'm leading within. And it's two starkly different styles. And especially in today's world, there's only one that really leads to continued success, which is the one who leads from within. The one who is a part of it. But the problem with that, or the mistake that people make when leading within, is that they actually are in all of it. And they don't understand how to lead from within with creating boundaries and creating all of the disciplines they need to be able to lead from within. Because it's easy to be in it and get caught up in it and then lose all of the things you need to do in order to be able to lead. So we talked about it, I think it was the first bomb button that got pressed on Brad's podcast. He asked me, he was like, leadership is a buzzword. What does it really mean? Or where does it start? And I said, it starts with you. If you can't lead yourself, you can't expect to lead anybody else. But if you lead yourself, it offers you the opportunity to become a center of influence. Forget about influencer. Right now you hear influencer and everybody thinks millions of followers and all of the engagement on social media. It's not about that. It's about impacting people positively around you. That could be 1, that could be 5, that could be 10, it could be 1 million. Doesn't matter. Numbers doesn't matter. Do you impact people positively around you? If you do, then you're an influencer and you're a leader. And the only reason you do that is because you lead yourself that way.
What a great way to close out Tuesday. Lori, as always, thank you. Tomorrow, look forward to you hosting us at your home at JC.
Yeah. Come on, everybody.
Coffee, bagels, fruit, good stuff. Really cool environment to listen, learn. If you like the energy today, come join us in person.
Just one push for everybody is, did you invite a friend, right? Like, if you're not bringing somebody with you, then are you really a leader? Are you really their friend? If you're doing it for yourself, then you should 1000% be doing it for somebody else.
Absolutely. I love that. It's like I saw some video, and I forget who did it yesterday, that said, the same way that you would never let a friend get in the car and drive if they've been drinking. That's the negative side of it. This is the positive side of it.
Right. Pulling them with you.
Influence people around you by putting them in the pool where they can learn how to swim better. So tomorrow's going to be super fun. Let me give you a heads up at what happened. The show itself will be just me and Mark, and I am putting Mark in the hot seat, and I am asking him mid-year questions of a growing president.
I love it.
It will be really cool. Audience participation. Lori will be hosting and doing her thing. Anybody who wants a tour, tomorrow would be the time to do that. And then when we're done, we're going to have a question and answer interview style about time management. I'll continue to interview Mark about time management skills. Instead of us just blasting at you guys.
Hot seat.
We're going to go real hot seat, live and in person. So if you're coming, fantastic. Bring a friend. If you're not coming, get off your ass and join us. It's rare. It's fun. Tomorrow's going to be hugging and kissing and lots of pictures, and you will show up in Thursday's Huddle.
You guys.
Let's get down to business.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. My friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down.